Africa has been experiencing power cuts for years, and their impact on the economy continues to be devastating. Outages have contributed to low GDP growth and increasing levels of unemployment. There's already been 26 days of rolling blackouts this year so far. Eskom spokesperson Sikonathi Mantshantsha joins us now. Good morning, Sikonathi, and thank you very much for your time. You know, I always think we rob ourselves, Sikonathi, of the bigger picture if we are to only tackle the current situation without tackling maybe the decisions that preceded this moment. But in the interest of time, we'll try and work backwards. But we'll start with that which preoccupies the minds of South Africans currently, Stage 8. Some joked about it yesterday, but I know the minister revealed to parliamentarians that it could be considered. So at what point would it be an option, and how many hours would we be without electricity?
Mfundo, thank you for the question. The first point to note is that Eskom itself has consistently said up to stage 8 can be implemented of load shedding when required, when necessary. That only happens when you really have lost so much generation capacity that you have to lose 8,000 megawatts when it is needed and not available at that time, and that would be due to breakdowns. We have never implemented anything beyond stage 6, and stage 6 was implemented for 2 days up to 2019, the 9th of December. Thereafter, the highest stage of load shedding has been stage 4. So it is all very well for analysts to give the most alarming headlines without necessarily even trying to give the basis for that assumption they are making. The reality is, if really push came to shove, it would be up to stage 8 of load shedding. That's what the system caters for. And you would have to lose a maximum 8,000 megawatts that is demanded at the time but not available.
But then one would say it would be alarming if we reach stage 8. Nevertheless, it would be distressing for citizens, I must say, because you'd remember in 2019 when we had stage 6, the president even left his trip and came back. That was just before you joined Eskom. So it was a very distressing time for South Africans, even the president just coming back to address us.
That's absolutely correct. Stage 4 is very distressing to the country. Stage 1 should not even be implemented. South Africans should never had load shedding in the first place. That's the reality. So any load shedding is very alarming. Not only alarming, it is very costly. It costs lives, it costs livelihoods, it costs money, it costs the economy. However, Eskom has no option but to implement load shedding when it is short of generation capacity, which Eskom has been loudly lamenting and requesting capacity to be added, to be built, at least since 2019, that day that you have just mentioned. We have been doing so very loudly and so openly. We have seen the efforts of the government, which we appreciate, to bring on additional capacity. But the point must be made very clearly, that since that day, there has not been an additional megawatt of capacity added to the system.
Which is quite disappointing, because there was a sense of urgency at that point, and then now we haven't added. Then to the solutions. There's an estimated 4,000...
Before you get to the solution, let's just close this part and give the people the context. By law in South Africa, the government, only the government has got the right and the authority and the power to procure the generation infrastructure. That means only the government can instruct anyone to build a power station, including Eskom. So I just wanted to close that part. Eskom works with the infrastructure that it has and has been given.
And then beyond this now, to the solutions themselves, there's an estimated currently 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts of immediate shortfall. I'm not sure if this is still the number, but as it stands, we had between 4,000 and 6,000. But are there short-term interventions that you have that can be enabled immediately to ease the pressure?
In December 2019, that number stood at 3,000 megawatts. That's what the Eskom requested the government to do and said, please bring us immediately 3,000 megawatts. That gap will grow every day as the current power stations are getting older and have to be retired. At this point, it is between 4,000 and 6,000 megawatts, and it will only get worse until we have we have new capacity. Are there short-term measures? The Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Mr. Mantashe, has indeed procured additional capacity, which has not yet been built. It has not yet come into the system. We expect the efforts of the department over the past 2 years to only start yielding any tangible power that can be connected over the next 2 years. Every procurement effort that has been made will only start delivering electricity during the next 2 years. In fact, 18 months from now, we will only start receiving any capacity. Beyond that, Eskom is doing everything that it can through its maintenance capacity to return power station units to service, to repair its old and tired machines, to generate as much electricity out of them as possible. At that time in December 2019, the date that you just mentioned, Eskom was only able to generate 27,000 megawatts of electricity. Yesterday, Eskom delivered 31,000 megawatts of electricity to the country. Eskom will, at the height of the winter this year, be able to deliver 35,000 megawatts of electricity, which again will still not be enough to really get rid of load shedding during the winter. And that all comes from the same infrastructure that Eskom has been working and trying to return to service over this time.
Then talk to me about this other intervention. There seems to be back and forth here. The intervention around the standard offer of securing immediate 500 megawatts from private generators with surplus electricity. I know that the DMRE said, in fact, they were not in the loop because they only heard about this through the media. Where are you insofar as bringing them in the loop insofar as this is concerned?
As I said in Bunda earlier, only the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy can procure electricity infrastructure. So all those questions about what is coming on or not outside of the current Eskom network should be directed to the department.
But had you written to them, though? Because there was a report that you wrote to them in January already, but you hadn't yet received a response. I don't want to take you into what is the purview now of the ministry itself. I really do want to confine you to that which relates to Eskom. But in this respect, was there an email written to them, though, about the 500 megawatts?
The department acknowledged receiving such correspondence from Eskom during last week when some journalists, particularly from Engineering News, were inquiring and after the minister had spoken in Parliament. So there are constant engagements with the department and Eskom and the Department of Public Enterprises on these matters. We do not yet have a decision or a response.
All right. And then to the latest incident of sabotage at Tutuga. Talk to me about this. What exactly happened here? Because you released a statement yesterday.
At Tutuga during this current week, so the Tutuga power station is the most troubled in the Eskom network. Eskom has publicly told the people that it has lost spares there that were supposedly acquired or bought by Eskom to the tune of 1.3 billion rand, but which could not be found in its storage or were never delivered. Eskom has also told the people that it has uncovered a racket that steals 100 million rands worth of oil every month from the power station, amongst other things. And all of that led to the power station, together with other serious neglect, being unable to produce electricity for an extended period of time. The new management that was installed at that power station since mid-2020 has done such a brilliant job that today there are 3 generation units contributing to power. There should have been 4 currently. What did happen was that a cable was discovered yesterday on Tuesday when Eskom was not able to power up that particular unit 5. And it took a lot of effort to try find what the fault was. And it was discovered that there had been a hidden cable in one compartment that had been severed with an angle grinder. It's not just a cable that can snap. It had been severed with an angle grinder and then concealed amongst other cables so that it would be very difficult to find. At a few hours later, after that was discovered and indeed repaired, which had delayed the return of the unit by 3 days, another pipe was found to have been cut again with an angle grinder in another part of that same generation unit, which all contributed to delaying the unit to service. So all of this has led Eskom to conclude that this is a deliberate act by someone who obviously works at the power station and who knows the security features, including the smart cameras that are in the power station, and knew where to cut and do what they needed to do without being detected. So Eskom has laid criminal charges with the police. As we have said, this is the fifth incident since March 2021 of sabotage at that particular power station, and all of these incidents, of course, have been reported to the police, and the police are doing their job there with the assistance of the forensics team at Eskom.
No, Sikonat, it's very concerning given all the other issues that Eskom is dealing with now, that you would have these acts of sabotage, if you will, but not to venture into the realm of conjecture or conspiracy theories, but just in an effort to understand. If there is somebody internally that would have cut the cable, is there perhaps, between you and I, an opportunity for them to benefit financially? If you were perhaps to just indulge us and take us through this, perhaps is there a service provider that then would have to procure the part and bring it back, that cable? Is there any benefit that could be derived by an internal staff member within Eskom?
Not by directly cutting a cable that can be replaced within minutes, as that was replaced within 30 minutes. But there obviously are some people who actually enjoy and benefit from the current chaos in the country, where infrastructure is deliberately being undermined and not able to deliver what's required. There are people who seem to have vested interests in that particular power station not operating. As we have said previously, and as I started with my introduction on this matter, the racketeering that I mentioned there, the theft of the spares, the theft of the fuel oil, and other incidents, these are deliberate acts by people who actually benefit from the corruption that actually brought that power station to its knees. It's one of the power stations that should be giving us 3,600 megawatts every day, but on a good day, Eskom has had to be content with only 600 or 1,200 megawatts coming out of that power station. Mm-hmm. So there are people benefiting, as I have said, particularly with the theft of the fuel oil. There are other sorts of crimes that have been happening there, which have actually necessitated Eskom to increase security measures. We have increased security personnel on site. We have introduced new technology to make sure that the power station is better protected. There have been a lot of cable theft outside of the power station. Eskom has had to employ drones and people patrolling with dogs to make sure that the environment is safer. But as you know, thieves will always try find another ways of benefiting, and this is one such incident. Mm-hmm. So there seems to be vested interests by some people, yes, certainly some within Eskom, to make sure that that power station and many others don't work. Last year, there were quite a few other incidents that Eskom went public about, not only at Tutuka, but at other power stations. So we are dealing here not only with severely neglected infrastructure that at times really was the victim of lack of human endeavor, but we have also had active human interference undermining the whole interest of the country.
Mm-hmm. Just indulge me a bit further. I know in the interest of time we do need to wrap up. But when you say there is a benefit here that could be derived, if we confine ourselves to the cable that has been cut, if the cable is cut, you're saying Eskom can replace it within a matter of minutes. And then where would the benefit lie in that respect? Is it then perhaps that the whole unit is down, and when the unit is down, there's an external contractor who's brought in, they have to service, and then there's an invoice? Just for clarity, so that people at home understand that if there's sabotage, it's not where Eskom is looking to distract them, that there probably isn't sabotage, Eskom is incompetent, it's that there is a financial benefit. I'm just looking to get the clarity there so that they understand at home. Where would the benefit be derived?
Mfundo, the benefit is not, the whole issue is not just about monies that are being stolen from the power stations. There's a lot of political things ongoing. For example, there are 20 employees that have been suspended at that power station for various offenses, including the crimes I have mentioned earlier, other procurement activities, and there are other people who have been suspended at Eskom and are going through disciplinary hearings for their neglect and for ignoring their jobs causing this country to be suffering, contributing to the massive load shedding that we have to be sitting with. So there's a lot of things that are ongoing. As you would know, over the past 4 years, Eskom has had to lose hundreds of senior managers and executives due to non-performance, due to crimes such as corruption, and all of them are very loud out there talking about how useless this management team is. And they are doing everything and have these networks still very active within the organization and are doing everything to prove this management team and the current employees, dedicated employees and loyal employees of Eskom to be useless people because they are the better ones and they have been removed from the organization.
So it's clearly a very toxic environment. So it's clearly a very toxic environment where you've got management here that is trying to ensure there's reliable power in the country, but you're also dealing with dismantling sort of circles and cliques where people were benefiting. A lot of corruption, at least that's what you're suggesting, that there are two issues you're seized with. Ensuring there's power in the country, but also dismantling certain cliques that were benefiting with perhaps service providers.
That are still benefiting indeed. You are absolutely correct. So it is a toxic environment in the sense that this country, you have not seen anyone being arrested for all of these crimes that have been committed against the people of South Africa, particularly within Eskom. I'll confine myself to Eskom, which has laid 104 charges with the police, and I've just added now a few with regards to Tutuka. Not a single arrest has been made other than 3 employees who were arrested for what you relatively could say are minor offenses at Tutuka Power Station. But Eskom has, for example, lost billions of rand through corruption in the state capture, as you will see the Justice Zondo's reports. You will see the amount of criminal charges that Eskom has laid with the police. There has not been a single arrest, and there are no prosecutions. So there are no consequences for wrongdoing. There are no consequences for the criminal conduct of people. Instead, what you do have are those same thieves and indeed fraudsters turning themselves into analysts and commenting very loudly about what's going wrong at Eskom and how really good they themselves are when they were inside Eskom and when they could be allowed to operate the organization, which has come to what it is, working with the same employees and the same largely management teams that have always been in place. But you have cliques that are doing everything actively to undermine the interests of the whole country to prove themselves to be the best managers ever.
So then now where to from here? Because I know we cannot still give you a free pass. How do you handle this? You're still busy with the project of dismantling these groupings. And how do we get generation? Can you in fact give me confirmation that at least for maybe this weekend, there will be no load shedding, because there was a statement to that effect again?
Definitely, Eskom is not entitled to any free pass. Eskom does not believe that it is owed anything by the people of South Africa. What Eskom does believe is that it owes the people of South Africa services. It needs to provide as much electricity as it can. The reality, though, is you have to work at it. You have to try and deliver the maximum that you can from each and every power station and from each and every employee that works for Eskom. I did initially at the beginning of this discussion describe to you how the process works to get electricity. Eskom is returning machines to service. Eskom is doing what it can. Today, we will be able to supply again to the country about 31,000 megawatts of capacity. That is still not enough in winter to suspend load shedding. So you will unfortunately get no guarantees. Eskom has been very transparent and making sure that it keeps the people of South Africa very well informed. We answer every question truthfully and we give all the facts. The reality is we will have a load shedding situation until there is new generation capacity coming onto the grid.
All right. And then in closing, tariffs. People are complaining electricity is very expensive. What do we attribute this to? Is it the build projects, the Medupi and the Kusile, that is costing us, where the shortfall is being made through us, the ordinary citizens? And beyond this, is it for those that have left the grid, that also that revenue is no longer coming to Eskom, and then we've seen an increase in how much we pay for electricity? What exactly is this, if we see this increase? What is it attributed to?
Mfundo, the starting point to answering your question, Eskom has over the past 15 years been building 3 power stations, Medupi, Kusile, and the Ingula, which is totally complete now. All of these have been built with borrowed money, debt, where the organization has had to go borrow the money, and of course the user pays for the use of the infrastructure. So the electricity tariffs have to pay for the build program. The electricity tariffs have to make sure that Eskom is able to charge or to be allowed to charge a tariff that allows it to reinvest and keep the infrastructure going through maintenance and new investments. And we must state this very clearly. Eskom does not just wake up tomorrow and decide what it will increase electricity prices by. It conducts studies that inform what is required in order to keep the organization running in terms of maintenance, paying back the debt that it did raise to build, and the regulator, the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, makes the decision after Eskom has made an application, and all interested stakeholders, including business and members of the public, and go and give their own view and oppose where they can, or support the application that has been made by Eskom. The regulator then applies the law and gives and awards an electricity increase that it deems appropriate. That's how Eskom gets to be allowed to charge for electricity tariffs. I must also state this again. Yes, the people in a country such as this one, which has got high levels of unemployment and indeed poverty, people won't feel it. But the reality is the electricity prices that Eskom charges are still in the lowest in the world amongst developed economies, amongst economies similar to the South African economy. So companies would rather come do business here because of the low electricity prices than go to countries like Germany, for example, where they really pay about 5 times the rate that Eskom charges. But the point again, I need to reiterate: Eskom does not just decide how much it will charge. It makes an argument on prudently incurred costs, and the regulator by law has to look at those and make a decision about what is appropriate. All parties have to apply the law, and that's what happens. The members of the public get an opportunity and they make their own contributions to the discussion, and the regulator in the end makes a decision that is informed by law.
You say prudently incurred costs, but some within society would beg to differ. You may not have been part of the management at the time, but you do know that some of these projects, these plants, are running way past their time, and that has resulted in costs escalating. So would we say that these are prudently incurred costs if we look at what has been happening at these 2 in particular, Medupi and Kusile?
That's totally a fact. Absolutely. It is a fact that a lot of the inflation of the cost of building these power stations is due to corruption. I mentioned earlier the Eskom's efforts with holding people accountable by laying criminal charges and assisting the police with the investigations and the Zondo Commission. What I have not yet said in this interview is that Eskom has also recovered some money from some of the organizations and individuals that were guilty of some of the theft, some of the corruption, and some of the irregularities that have cost the people. Eskom has recovered over the past 2 years more than 2.5 billion rand from particularly two companies, McKinsey and Company, and it has recovered 1.6 billion rand from ABB, all from tainted contracts that had a lot of corruption in them. And all of that money that is being recovered gets returned to the organization and helps to lower the price or the cost of electricity to the public. So yes, Eskom again only applies for prudently incurred costs to the regulator, and the regulator makes a decision that is appropriate and informed by the facts, informed by law. There is indeed, we can never even try to escape the fact that there is a lot of corruption that has gone into what Eskom is today and what the whole country is today. The reality is you still have to be able to generate electricity. You still have to be able to pay for maintenance. You still have to be able to pay the debts that you have created. More than 300 billion rand of the current debt that Eskom is sitting with is due to those power stations, which we now know and have known for quite a while that were tainted and infested by corruption.
No, Sikonati, thank you very much for joining us this morning. That was Eskom spokesperson Sikonati Mantshantsha.